Hi guys, this is Scott Horne with the Owner Finance Network, and this topic is going to be what I call a quick general overview for construction to help investors get in and out of their transactions quickly. So remember, if you find this helpful, take a minute and like the video. If you got any comments, comment below. And don't forget to check us out at theownerfinancenetwork.com. So guys, the key to construction, in my opinion, in order to get in and out of a property quickly, is to learn what I just call generalized knowledge and compartmentalize this for the various aspects of the property. And I've got about 15 things that I go through and look at every time the exact same way. And we'll go through those step by step here in a moment. But you have to be able to do that to get in and get out. Otherwise, you may wind up being in the house for an hour or two, and time is money. I remember so well going to what I call a cattle call, where there might be 15 or 20 investors looking at one house. And while I'm going through the house, I see people in there and they've got their tape measures and they've got pages and pages of notes they're taking. They're measuring the walls and the floors and this and that and everything. And I bet they had to be there for at least 30 minutes to an hour to gather that information. And I am in and out of the house in about 3 minutes. And by training yourself how to remember things you're seeing, take some pictures to relate back, and getting estimates is what our business is about, in my opinion. Because in the rehab investment business, you are never going to be spot on because there's too many things that can be missed along the way. So what I want to do is just take a minute and share with you those items that I go through on an every deal transaction. So guys, the first one is know the city's requirements where you are. And they change. And they change city by city by city, no matter where you are in a generalized area. For instance, here in the DFW area, the city of Dallas may have one thing, but Garland may have something different, Mesquite different, Balch Springs different, Seagoville, Plano, Richardson, all the little satellite cities around the city of Dallas area may have completely different requirements, and you've got to take the time to learn to know that. Things like, what are your parking space requirements? Driveway, two-car driveway, one car, things of that nature. What if you do a garage conversion? Can you do a garage conversion? Obviously, it has to be permitted. But if you convert the garage, must you have a parking space additional on the property behind the building line per se? Or can it be as part of the driveway? Or, as I have recently found in a few cities, you have to rebuild either the one or two car garage that you're converting. You have to know these things because this can cost you guys a lot of money. Do they require smoke and carbon monoxide detectors? And to new code, they have to be wired in and not battery operated. What are the required permits? There are fence permits, roof permits, window permits. Some cities have door permits, front and back door. Water heater permits, moving the plumbing permits, HVAC permits, all types of things like this. And you need to know what is required when you're working on that property, so you know when to hire the proper trade and when to get things permitted. So after I know my city requirements, my first thing I look at on any property, of course, is I'm going to be looking at the property in an overall capacity. And that means I'm looking at how the house sits on the lot, how the fence lines appear to be, and I'm going to make the assumption in this conversation that we are inside of a subdivision that have subdivided lots, that have defined meets and bounds, four corners, things of that nature along the way typically. So how does our property sit on the property? If there's a detached garage, how does it sit? Do my fence lines look like they're in place? Is there a shed somewhere that is too close to the fence or too close to an alleyway maybe? Things of this nature that could be problematic or that could have been built after the fact that becomes an issue. And that's really pretty easy to train yourself on because most of the time things are always copacetic and just good, but not always. And I'm not talking about a fence line being 1 or 2 inches over the property line. I'm talking being feet over the property line and things like this that create issues. Or where a garage has been built on somebody else's property because maybe there's no fence between the properties. So you've got to learn just some basic things, how to locate property corners, not necessarily find them, but get a good general idea where things are. And of course, the way you do that is take a few minutes and maybe talk to a surveyor. What do they do? How do they find this stuff? And see what they think. Now, you get out into an open field area where you just have barbed wire fences and whatnot, that changes a little bit along the way and gets more specific, where you may want to get a survey. But knowing just how a property sits on the land is all important for that first general view. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to look at what is my demo going to be. If I've got to go in and demo this property, am I gutting the kitchen? Am I taking the roof off? Am I gutting the bathroom, flooring, windows? Is there stuff in the house, in the yard? Is there going to be landscaping debris that needs to be hauled off in some format? And I need to know that because that's going to depend on the size and number of dumpsters I'm going to have. And that is a legitimate expense you've got to be thinking about, because dumpsters keep getting more expensive and the cost to demo these houses get more expensive. So familiarize yourself with the cost of dumpsters. Keep in mind, many cities require you to use their dumpster company, and you can't use somebody else or you could get fined. Doesn't mean you might not be able to get away with it on a weekend, but you got to be very cautious because they could shut you down and hit you with that fine along the way. So as you're going into buying properties, understand there are things that you've got to have knowledge base of, even as little as, does that city require us to use their own dumpster company? And what is the cost for a 10-yard, 20-yard, 30-yard, 40-yard dumpster? Not just the initial cost, but the per day cost thereafter. The next thing I'm looking for when I go and look at any property is, if it has gas, is there a gas meter? Is the gas meter on its stand, or has it been removed because maybe it's been turned off for too long? Is it locked? Could be. When you find that there is a gas meter, that it is no longer there or is locked, you're going to automatically expect you have to have a gas test put on the gas line. Now, for older homes, the problem with that is, most likely, you're going to have issues in your gas line, and you need to expect right up front that you are replacing that gas line, meaning you need to know the estimated cost to replace that gas line. Could there be problems inside the house with older plumbing as well? Yes, and you've got to expect to build that into your cost and expenses along the way. Now, the next thing I'm looking at beyond the gas meter is the electric meter. Is there one on the house or not? A lot of homes we'll look at that may be vacant, the city may have already pulled that meter. If that meter has been pulled, you are expecting to get a permit before it can get on, and the city is going to have to inspect the house. That means they're going to be looking at your electrical panel. Is it up to code? And anything else in the house per se, you're going to have to bring to code. And this is again where you want to talk to your electrician on what those costs and expenses are. For instance, what's the general cost to put in just the meter box and then the breakers? Are they requiring new GFCI breakers, which is what is new code? Do I have to put inside the house GFCI plugs and items of that nature, along with wired-in smoke detectors and carbon monoxide detectors? All of this adds up if you're having to pull a permit for the electric meter. Something else to look at is as you're looking at that electrical panel on every house, is that panel an old Federal Pacific panel? The problem with those is they have been known to be fire hazards, and if you have one in your house, you are replacing it. And when you're replacing it, it means it's going to be permitted, and now you're not going to be able to keep it in the house. It's going to have to be moved to the garage or maybe on an outside wall somewhere. Know what those requirements are. Talk with the city, talk with a knowledgeable electrician, and learn the basics and just the basic cost surrounding those items. Another thing you need to look at is when you're walking the interior of the house regarding electrical, is look at your plugs and outlets. Most modern homes have a 3-prong outlet in your plugs. Older homes may only have a two-prong outlet, and what that tells you is you may have aluminum wiring that requires the outlets to be pigtailed. There is a cost and expense to that also. Now, if you don't know to look for these things, you're going to be hit to do those because a home inspector may come in and require that, and you could have done it a lot cheaper while you're working on the house instead of after the fact. So again, little details to talk to your electrician about what is the cost to pigtail electrical outlets in a home. They'll give you a base number to follow. The next thing that I look at every house today is the sewer line. Now, you have to understand how sewer lines came to be. There used to be tar paper sewer lines a long time ago. Those morphed into clay pipelines, and then back in the early 50s that got replaced by cast iron. And then sometimes into the early mid 70s that got replaced by PVC. Now, the problem with that is a cast iron sewer line, they have a life of about 50 years. So if your house was built, let's say in 1955, the life of that sewer line ran out in about 2005, 20 years ago almost, meaning there's a very good chance that that sewer line is rusted out. Not only the sewer line in the yard, but maybe even the pipes inside the wall to a certain degree could have issues and problems that you need to look at. One of the things that you'll see about sewer lines oftentimes, because as they leak so much, they cause the foundation problems with properties. And so I'm always looking for the cleanouts, and if it's an older home and I can't find cleanouts anywhere, I'm assuming cast iron. What does that mean? I'm either doing some type of a camera run to check out the sewer line, because I can't do a static test on the line because I don't have any cleanouts. Other things that you have to learn to look at on older homes is oftentimes you might find PVC cleanouts, but the reason those are there is they put in cleanouts but did not replace the sewer line, and you can't get confused. So oftentimes I'm asking questions to the homeowner if they've ever had the sewer line replaced in the yard, under the house, things of this nature, and if they don't know the answers, oftentimes I'm having that checked out along the way and making that part of my contract. All this will help protect you because replacing a sewer line can be very expensive, especially if it's a slab type foundation, and it affects your bottom line substantially along the way. The next thing I'm looking at in the house is, of course, the roof. Is it new? Is it ancient history? Is it curling up? Does it look okay? Are the granules coming off too much? You know, do I know of any recent hailstorms in the area? If I can, I'm asking the seller when it was replaced or not replaced. Have they made any insurance claims? So often insurance agent, homeowners will make an insurance claim, get the money for the roof, but not replace it. What that simply means from your perspective is that you will have to replace the roof in order to get insurance on the property in which the roof is covered. And of course, when you're selling that home, any homeowner is going to want to make sure that that is covered out there. So I'm looking at the roof, and again, I talk to roofers and I ask basic questions. What does a 20-year shingle cost? What does a 30-year shingle cost? What is the cost of a 30-year dimensional shingle? This is by a bundle which covers a certain amount of square footage on the roof. And I get asked other questions. If I have a basic home that has, we call it a 12-4 pitch, which is your standard pitch, on a 1,000 square foot home with a one-car garage, how many bundles of shingles? 20. Well, great. What's the average cost to do a 1,000 square foot home? About X. Well, how about a 1,500 square foot home? About Y. Well, what about a 2,000 square foot home? About Z. I don't need to know all the numbers in between. I just need to know basic numbers for estimating purposes, and I can get close enough from there as I'm making a quick decision on a property. And obviously, if the roof looks bad enough, I'm moving in and just assuming I'm going to replace it because a future homeowner is going to want it done automatically. The next thing I'm looking at in the property is, of course, the exterior of the home. The siding, is it brick, stone, stucco, wood, asbestos siding that you better be careful with? And of course, most of those houses are going away pretty fast now. Does it need repair? Does the exterior skin need repair? Does the soffit or fascia need repair? And painting. Now, obviously, if I'm just painting the soffit, which is the under part of the roof, or the fascia, the front part, a lot less expensive than, of course, painting the entire house. And you've got to know the cost of paint out there because it has gone up substantially. And again, you can get basic numbers down for what's going to cost you to buy the paint to paint a 1,000 square foot home, a 1,500 square foot home, and a 2,000 square foot home, whether you're doing just the soffit and fascia or more siding. And eventually you get good at knowing you need to have 1 5-gallon drum, 2 5-gallon drums, or things of that nature along the way in order to order the paint and estimate those costs. Now, the other thing I'm looking at is the windows. Do I have old aluminum windows or new vinyl or steel windows that are double insulated and double paned? This is important because on a marketability basis, what do other houses that have sold have? Are they fully updated, all new windows or old windows? What is the average in the neighborhood as I drive the few blocks? Am I seeing most houses with windows replaced or not? That helps you make a decision on how that marketing will go and whether you need to replace the windows or not. Now, obviously, you need to find some window companies, and the prices can vary greatly along the way, and know what the average cost to replace an average window. An average window might be what's called a 3050, 3 feet wide, 5 feet tall. You know, that's going to be price one. And of course, windows can change from 4060 to smaller, what we call slider windows that are more long and narrow, but the prices are similar, and you just ask some basic questions, do a count, and you estimate. And that way, if I know I've got to put in 12 windows, I know my average cost per window is about $350 or $300 or $400, whatever that number might be. I can get a pretty close estimate on what it's going to cost me to replace my windows. The next thing I'm going to look at is when I go into the home is, do I have to move any walls? Now, I'm not a big fan of moving too many walls, except on higher end properties, because it's expensive. Not only am I moving walls, but if I move a wall and I have hardwood floors there, am I having to add hardwoods to replace it where I took the wall out? Am I having to put a header up in the attic to carry a load, which now has to be engineered and permitted? So more expensive in those instances when you do those kind of things. So what is the overall design of the house? Do I have to move walls? What are the rules about moving walls? About an 8-foot opening to code before you have to put headers in or have a column in for a support. Again, talk to your contractor and get some basic knowledge of headers, of code requirements, the 8-foot opening, before you need additional support to be added in on load-bearing wall areas. And what's the cost to do that? What's the cost to demo the wall? What's the cost to put a header up in the attic? Can I use a double 2x12, maybe a triple 2x12 put together? Or do I have to buy a lam beam? So by a lam beam, I mean it's laminated together. It's usually multiple pieces of 2x4s put together, maybe pieces of plywood all glued and screwed together that create various strength tones. But all of these cost different numbers, and you've got to have just a feel for it and an estimation. What does it cost to buy a 2x12 that's 16 feet long? How do you figure that out? Heck, guys, go to Home Depot. You can find the price real quick. You got to get 2? Easy. You need 3? Easy. But keep in mind, you got to get that up into the attic where it may be assembled, but also it takes a lot of guys to get something that big and or that heavy up into the attic as well. So take the time, talk to your contractor, get some basic information out there, and you start to learn the basics of the business about moving walls. Supports, headers, look at your floors. How's it going to affect your flooring when you do that? So in addition to moving walls, headers, items of this nature, where I have to have a column and things of this nature pursuant to code, I'm going to look at the trim in the house. Those are the baseboards. Crown molding maybe if it's got it. The doors, are they in good shape? Are they all mismatched and need to be replaced? If it's a cat house where they had a lot of cats and there's a lot of urine smell in the home, you're probably replacing all the baseboards automatically. But what's the cost? Again, you go look at, let's say, a Home Depot or a Lowe's or a supplier for that material. What's the cost per square foot? Because guys, it can be from $1 a square foot to $10 a foot. Can I use a 1x4 or a 1x6 maybe for a different look? Do I need to put a little trim piece on top or not? Every deal is different, but knowing your basic pricing structure of that is so important. What does a basic slab door cost? What does a 4-panel or a 6-panel door cost? And these are the things you want to determine regarding your doors and your trims in the house as you're making decisions. Obviously, as you get into more expensive homes, higher dollar value, sometimes those have to change and go up a little bit. Where you can't use base grade, you need to go up to that next level or even one beyond based upon the quality of home that you're in. But again, you have to know how to reasonably estimate those items and how many estimated square feet you're going to have in your house. I bet you anything, you could probably Google a 1,000 square foot house. It's a 3-bedroom, 1 bath with a living room, kitchen, and dining. And I bet you something on there will say you'll be have about, 1,000 linear feet of baseboard or whatever that number might be. But you figure that out and you run your estimates. So next, talk about looking at the interior overall. What's the condition of my walls, the ceilings? If it has acoustic on the ceiling, which some people call popcorn, can you leave it or does it need to go away to get it updated a little bit more modern? Well, there's a cost to scraping it because scraping those ceilings isn't the easiest thing in the world to do. And then you got to retexture the ceilings as well. There's a cost of that. Again, talk to your contractor. Get a feel for the cost for 1,000, a 1,500, a 2,000 square foot home, and it gives you a thumbnail sketch of those costs and expenses. Then, of course, once you do all that, you're going to be painting it and probably putting 2 coats of paint on the ceiling because it's new texture that's up there. So take the time to learn the cost of painting and whatnot. How many gallons of paint do you need for the average 1,000, 1,500, 2,000 square foot home? And what's that going to look like? And what's the average labor cost to paint these houses? Again, I'm not trying to hone these prices down to the final penny. I'm just trying to get a thumbnail sketch for all those things together. For instance, a 2,000 square foot home may cost you $6,000 for paint and labor to paint the entire home. Maybe in your area it's 5, maybe it's 7. Get a good number, run with it. You don't need to be dead on point until you get out there and do your final estimating. I'm going to take a look at my walls. Do they have holes in it? What's the cost to repair a hole in the walls? Things of this nature. I've got to tape, bed, and texture those, repaint it. I've got to paint my doors and my trim. And guys, there are little things you have to learn about painting. Where can I use latex paint? Where can I use oil-based paint? You will walk in a lot of houses where they have put latex paint over oil-based paint, and now it's peeling off in these long strips. You have to know that there's a solvent you have to put on all of this so that new oil-based paint will penetrate and actually stick, or you have to replace all the trim because it's going to be way too labor intensive to sand or do anything else beyond that. But there are ways of solving those problems, and you've got to learn the basic estimating of those. Again, you talk to your contractor about each one of those, and they can give you a basic generalized number. The next thing I do is I move into the kitchen and my design of the kitchen, which I try to keep it the same that the house currently has without getting it, expanding it too much. But remember, kitchen and baths sell houses, so you want this to be a decent looking kitchen. Well, are my cabinets in good shape? Always look under the kitchen sink. How is that bottom flooring there? Is it still intact and in good shape? Is it totally rotten out because there have been leaks that haven't been fixed? Can I fix that easy enough? Are the cabinets all wood or are they particle board? Can I paint the cabinets? Do I need to put new doors on to update and modernize it because I've got maybe a good bones for the basic cabinets, But by putting a new door on, it totally updates the cabinets, which is a lot cheaper than removing and replacing all the cabinets. Maybe the cabinets are stained and you want to paint them white or something like that. Well, what's the cost to either sand and prepare those cabinets for paint, and then to paint them with oil-based paint? And again, you learn the cost to reface cabinets, $100 a door. You've got the door and hinges you've got to be putting on there. What's the cost to paint cabinets that may be 20 linear feet of lowers and uppers? And again, your contractor can give you a pretty close guess on the average cost to get them prepared and to be painted. And this just allows you to move in and out of those areas quickly. The next thing you're going to be looking at are your countertops. Can you keep the countertops? Do they need to be replaced? Is the house a low enough value that you can use Formica? Possibly. Or have granite prices in your area come down so low that it's just as cheap to put in a base stage granite than it is to do Formica? Get your estimates for what it's going to cost on a cost per square foot. And I prefer to estimate on a running linear foot because it's easier for a quick estimate of that scenario. What's it going to cost to do a backsplash if I want to put up tile? Well, obviously you need the cost of the tile you're going to put up. Is it stone? Is it some kind of glass or something else? And then what's the estimated labor cost to do that? And you can get pretty close to an estimate to do an average backsplash. Is it going to be about $500, $750, or $1,000 based on the material that you choose? The other thing you've got to look at, of course, are your appliances. A double oven, a single oven, a stovetop, electric or gas, a vent-a-hood, a microwave vent-a-hood, the dishwasher, if you have one, the sink, faucet, and disposal. All of these cost money. Is it a 24-inch stove, which may cost more than a 30-inch stove because they're harder to come by and find? Do I need to upgrade my appliances because of the value of the house, or can I go with base level appliances? Can I go with scratch and dent versus not? Do I have to put a refrigerator in or not? The answer there usually is not, but sometimes the answer is yes. And again, you get estimates for appliances. Is there a scratch and dent store that you might be able to utilize in your area? Go by Home Depot and Lowe's, look at appliances. There are other appliance stores that sell that you can find online. What's the time to get them in? Is there a shipping charge? And you save all this information and you start to learn what does it cost to put in a gas stovetop. $1,000 for the stovetop and installation. Easy. What about electric stovetop? Well, on a base grade model, probably about $500 to $600. Great. Close enough for government work, as we say. And you start to figure this out. And you get reasonable estimates for those kind of items, what you're going to do and design your kitchen. The next thing I'm looking at are my bathrooms. And I said earlier, kitchens and baths sell houses. So it's important to do these correctly. And guys, sometimes I've seen houses that might have 1950s tile in it. That's coming back in style. If it's in great condition, good condition, maybe you can leave it and go a little Art Deco. But how's that tub? Because you're not going to match that tile back out, unfortunately. When you take old tile out of an old house, you have to know that there is probably a mortar buildup underneath it and on the walls of the shower. It's how they did tile board back in the days. That simply means you're having to put subfloor down and hardy board down on top of that before you put your tile back down on the floor or around the walls, because you got to build it back up to the same level of the house. And all of that costs money from a materials perspective. So learning the basics out there will help. What kind of tub to put in? What's the cost of my tub trim? That's the shower and the tub fixtures. What's the cost of doing the tub surround? How many square feet is an average tub surround from the tub to the ceiling? 77 square feet. Great. What's the average cost of my tile? $2 a square foot. What's my average cost to install? $2 a square foot. So 4 times 77, I can get real close to $300. Great. I'll bump it up to $350, maybe $400 to give me some leeway. I'm done. This is how you get generalized maintenance. What kind of vanity do I need? 30-inch, 36-inch, 48-inch, 60-inch, something bigger? Do I have two 30-inch with a knee space based on the size of the room in the bathroom? What's going to be my countertop material? Is it going to be a standard material that comes with the countertop, or am I going to put some kind of granite on it? Or does that countertop come with it? Here in the DFW area, I love going to Second to Serve Plus, Builder Serve Plus, and other vanity companies where I can look at a myriad of vanities and make some decisions on some good-looking stuff that's not at full price out there. And so learning how to look at your bathroom is very beneficial. Am I going to build a shower in? Am I going to take a bathtub out and put in the shower? Do I need a shower door? What do shower doors cost? I love going to Lowe's that have a great shower door selection, as well as some of these other surplus stores have some quality shower door selections. What are the sizes to build in? Is it 48, 60 inches, or something else? What are my options along the way? What does it cost to put in shower glass? Maybe you want to talk to a shower glass company because 3/8 inch glass is expensive. Do I put my glass all the way across my shower and a glass door, or do I leave a walk-in opening? All these things work out, and sometimes you can let your homeowner make these decisions. But you need to have an estimation for all these items. For instance, today on an average bathroom, to gut it and put it back in, I'm thinking $3,500 to $4,000. When I go into a master bathroom, if I'm going to enlarge it, make it a little bit nicer, take out some old outdated tub areas and maybe put in a large freestanding shower, I'm going to have shower pan items, more tile, more glass. So that cost might go from, let's say, $4,000 to $6,000, or maybe a fuzz more if there's more items ongoing. Little things like mirrors, toilet paper holders, towel holders. What does it look like? What are the price differences? Do I need to put in a $5 toilet paper holder or a $25 paper holder? Is it going to bring more money for the house or not? You've got to learn to make all of these basic decisions and run a reasonable estimate based on the quality of home you have and the price range of the home you have. And realize that there's different costs for making a bathroom a standard bathroom or upgrading a little bit. And again, you can go nuts and go crazy, guys, on these kind of things, but understand these houses are typically commodities because you're not living in the house. Let's go to flooring. And I love looking at flooring because houses are very different. A lot of older homes have hardwoods under the carpeting. I can sand and restain those. Well, what does it cost to sand and restain them? Is it $2 1/4, $2 1/2, $3 a square foot? There are a lot of good hardwood guys out there that'll tell you what those are. Do I need to put shoe molding down around my baseboard or not? There's a cost to that. Do you need it or not? What's the cost per linear foot to do that? Again, your hardwood guy will tell you those things. Am I looking at a plywood floor or a slab where maybe I can do LVP, luxury vinyl plank? Well, what's the cost of my luxury vinyl plank? Is it $1.79 a foot, or is it $2.79 a foot or higher? Again, this is where I go to the hardware stores, the Lowe's, the Home Depots, the Floor & Decors, or other stores in your locale, and I price these out. I look at the thickness. Am I talking a 2 mil, a 3 mil? What's the quality? Is it scratch resistant, water resistant? Is it lifetime? Things of this nature, and I start to weigh out that decision. How many square feet do I have to put in LVP? Or am I sanding hardwoods down? So I can get a quick estimate on the flooring. And I'm not trying to measure it out. I will walk off a room and go, that room is 20 by 25. I got 500 square feet. X is going to be my cost. Am I putting carpeting in the bedroom or something different? And again, what's the cost of carpeting? Guys, they used to price carpeting out all the times per yard. That's a 3 by 3 section, 9 square feet. You'll notice they have now changed pricing to dollars per square feet because it seems like the cost is less. Do the math. When I'm pulling up old carpeting, is the old padding good enough to keep, or do I need to replace the padding? And you ask basic questions. What's the cost per padding? There's $1 per square foot or per yard for that I'm used to doing. With carpeting, to get mid-grade carpeting, what's that going to be? Is it going to be $15 a yard or more? What's the cost to install carpeting? 2.5 a yard, 3. And again, you talk with people in the industry, other rehabbers, find their carpet guys, and you ask questions. And you will get this. Do I need to have a base padding 1/2 inch, 3/4 inch? Do I need a different poundage, which is more density in that? Everything's a little bit different for the size and quality of the home you have and the dollar range you have. But it doesn't take rocket science to figure this out. You get generalized numbers along the way. The other thing I'm going to think about is tile costs. Do I need to put tile in the kitchen or LVP or hardwood? What about the utility room? Things of this nature. Do I need to put down a 1/4 inch or a 1/2 inch hardy board before I put my tile down? Is it a plywood underlayment in the, let's say, the kitchen and utility room when I pull everything up? Or I need to put a 1/4 inch hardy board down and put my tile on top? I'm looking at all these things, but I'm also learning, what does a sheet of hardy board or tile board cost? What does 1/4 inch cost? What does 1/2 inch cost? Basic things that you start to learn as you play within this industry. The next thing I'm going to look at is my lighting, my fans. Do I need to go back with the same kind of lighting the house has or do something different? A lot of old homes used to use lamps. They don't have any lights in the ceilings. Maybe I want to put in can lights. They're fairly inexpensive. What's that cost to wire those? How many do I need? Again, I'm asking my electrician what the cost per can is to install. They'll give you a base number. Go with it. That's all you want to be, is close enough to it. Am I putting up a ceiling fan with a light kit? Do that has a remote control on it or not? Or am I going to put 2 switches on the wall instead of one for the fan, one for the light? Again, the quality, size, and price range of the house will determine what you do along the way. Bathroom light fixtures may already be built into the equation. My kitchen, utility light fixtures. What about my front porch light, my back porch light? Are they in great condition, or are they as old as dirt and falling off the wall and we have to replace them? Things of this nature. Well, what do they cost? Again, you go and you get generalized costs for a base grade fan with a light kit, one without a light kit. What is a basic front and back porch light? Is it a wall mount or a ceiling mount? What does an LED light cost for the kitchen or utility? Or things of this nature. Can I buy a contractor pack where I get a discount for buying 2 at a time or 6 at a time? And what will look good in your home? And again, remember, guys, I said this earlier, these houses are commodities. You're not going to be living there. So you're not trying to put the most expensive things in there, but you're trying to put decent quality into the home that will help you sell that home and will look very nice and will be very functional along the way. So the last thing I look at is the general section of this, and that is going to be the final basics. What about my front and back door locks? What about my doorknobs inside? Are they good enough where I can keep them? Do I need to replace them? Is it easier to rekey the front and back doors, garage door, exterior doors, or is it cheaper to go ahead and buy a whole new lock set? Do I need to buy base grade lock sets or the one level up? Rarely would I go beyond that to the high-end level because it can get real expensive real quick. And again, different value of homes kind of call for different locks and lock sets that you're looking at. But what does it cost to rekey a lock? A single cylinder, a double cylinder. It used to be $7 a cylinder. Guess what? Everything's gone up. And so just learning those kind of things and going, well, if I've got 10 doors in the house and I got 2 bathroom doors and I've got 8 passage lock interior doors, and I've got a basic front and back door deadbolt set. It'll cost me X dollars to buy a twin pack for front and back door and indoor, and to install it's going to cost me about $10 or $15 per door to install. Boom, I get a basic number for doorknobs and I'm done. And then finally is cleaning the house. What's it going to cost to clean this house? Obviously, smaller homes are cheaper than bigger homes. Is it a $300 deal, $350, $400, $500, or something more based on the size of the house or level of cleaning that the house is really going to need? And overall, guys, I've said the same thing a few times, is these houses are commodities. We don't design the house necessarily that we're going to live in it. You could, but I've also found that by over designing and putting higher end materials in, you're throwing away your profit. It doesn't mean to cheap the house out, and there's a fine line between doing it right, doing it cheap, and overkill at the same time. I like to go literally walk the halls of Lowe's, Home Depot, Floor & Decor, and I look at prices. People chuckle at me all the time about that, but I really do. I look at the price of a 2x12. What's the price of a fence panel? What's the price for a 1x4 or a 2x4? Just basic things that I want to know so my contractors don't take advantage of me. What does a sheet of standard sheetrock cost, or a standard tile board, whether it's hardy board or tile board? Just getting an estimate, and I do my best to remember these things. And I'm looking at various prices all the time. What is my LVP cost going on? What's my basic tile cost? $1.50 a square foot, $2, $3. What's my backsplash? What's my granite? And I get basic costs, so when I'm negotiating with my contractors, I know about what to expect. And if they come in and they are way over the number I'm thinking, I'm able to sit back, find out why, and negotiate it back to where it needs to be. So learn some basic things. This will help you once you get good at it, get in and out of your house fast. And normally, again, what I'll do is I will spend no more than 5 or 10 minutes at a house doing my walkthroughs. I'll go out to the car and I will either dictate to myself what I just saw, my estimated cost, and I'll go back and download that when I get back to the office. And I find ways that will save me time in doing this. I'm not trying to nail my costs because there's no way I'm going to do it. So long as I'm within 10% plus or minus, I'm happy. That's weighed into the factor of my offers as I'm making my offers. So guys, I hope you found this video helpful. If you did, take a minute and like it. If you got more questions about it, take a minute and comment below, please. We'll do our best to answer those for you. And don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel at theownerfinancenetwork.com. We'll see you guys next time.